On this entry of the STEM journals, man-made rain, water delivery express, and an oceanographer in the desert?
Author, musician, meteorite hunter, adventurer. I've led an eventful life. Now I'm exploring exciting STEM careers and recording what I find in the STEM journals.
STEM journals, initial entry. Water. It's the basis of all life on our planet, from the most primitive single-cell organisms to much more highly evolved life forms like me. It covers most of the surface of our planet, and most of our bodies are made from it. But who are the people helping us understand water and helping us get it where it needs to be? I need to know more, so I'm here at Biosphere 2, where their mission is to help understand natural and man-made environments. I'm hoping they're not going to throw me in the deep end.
Hey, Geoff.
Kevin, I'm having the best time here. Biosphere 2 is such a fantastic place with its association with space exploration, engineering, ecology. I mean, you've got your own rainforest and ocean in the building.
It's a great opportunity to engage folks, visitors, school kids, and do a lot of great research.
And being out here in the middle of the desert, water must be of particular interest to you, and it's of particular interest to me too.
Well, let's go meet Peter Troke. He's the Director of Research, and he heads up our Landscape Evolution Observatory, which is all about water.
That sounds like exactly what I'm looking for.
All right, let's go.
You've even got your own airlock. It's fantastic. Woo. Well, Peter, please tell me, what is the purpose of LEO?
The purpose of LEO is to address three critical questions in earth sciences that are relevant to society. The first question is, how does life start? The second question is, what's the role of life in the hydrological cycle? And the third question is, how do ecosystems change with climate change? What do you think?
Really? This is the biggest earth sciences experiment ever built?
Actually, it's right above us.
This is just extraordinary. You've got 3 giant slopes, each roughly the same, and it's raining indoors. Oh, raining in an indoor desert. This is definitely something I've never seen before. And so you can control all of this?
Yes, we can decide when and when not to rain on the slopes. And that's the advantage of having built LEO under the glass at Biosphere.
Amazing. Peter, your control of this closed environment is super impressive. But how does it help you in your search to understand the origins of life?
Well, the moment we add water to this volcanic soil, together with the microbes that are in there, they cause chemical weathering of the minerals that are composing this basaltic rock. Now, with the weathering, the minerals will release nutrients. And when we let this process go on for a couple of months to maybe a year or two, there will be enough nutrients built up into the soil that we can start considering sowing seeds over the landscape and see what grows on it.
Once you've germinated seeds and you've got plants actually growing on the slopes, they will affect the way in which water travels through the soil?
Exactly. So the grasses that will grow on the slope grow roots. We will probably introduce some woody species like shrubs. They will grow deeper roots. Those are all highways for water to move through the soil.
But to me, I think the most interesting part is once that's all in progress, you are then going to study the effects of climate change on these ecosystems in this controlled environment.
Exactly. So we can give one hill slope maybe a 4 degrees Celsius warmer climate than it experienced before, over probably the first 5 years of the experiment. And the second hill slope may experience higher CO2 concentrations. Since we are starting with 3 identical ecosystems, we can now observe what climate change does to these ecosystems.
So you might kind of put an end to some of these arguments about climate change. You're going to have some hard data here.
Yeah, and also we will be able to answer questions about, can we predict the future of the Sonoran Desert? What happens if the monsoon rains disappear? Will the saguaro cactus disappear? Those are critical questions that beg for an answer.
This is just a fantastic experience, being down here, seeing the underside of your great experiment and all the nuts and bolts.
Yes, and the data that comes out of all the sensors and samplers that you see gives us a rich data set So we need to work together with climate experts, with ecologists, with microbiologists, geochemists, and hydrologists to figure out what it's trying to tell us.
And as a hydrologist yourself, this is the part that really interests you, isn't it? This is where the water from your closed ecosystems is collected and studied.
Correct, Geoff. This is basically similar to the hill slopes on the mountaintops, where rainfall gets transformed into runoff, which flows into the reservoirs, which produces drinking water for our cities. And Geoff, if you want to learn more about this, you should head upstream.
I think I will. It's better than the deep end. Besides being really cool, how does a chopper help investigate water supply? Coming up on the STEM Journals.
STEM Journals is sponsored by Copperpoint, proud to sponsor STEM education because students who excel in science, technology, engineering, and math will solve the challenges of tomorrow.
Water is the most important requirement for every single known life form, except in Star Trek, of course. And the inhabitants of desert cities here in Arizona need water just like everyone else, but the supply is scarce. And that's why I'm meeting with Steve Westwood of the Salt River Project to find out where our water comes from and to learn about the technology and people that get it to us. Steve, I find it ironic that you want to talk to me about water management in the desert and it's raining. And with all our lakes and reservoirs, don't you have anything more interesting to show me than a runway?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the size of this. The only way we can do this properly, Geoff, is to get you on this helicopter. Let's go take a look.
Seriously?
Let's go.
I knew you were cooking up something, and that's why I brought my special bomber jacket.
There's Tempe Town Lake. Great opportunity for City of Tempe to use a portion of their unused allocation to create a lake within the Salt River itself.
How do you manage to find the spare water for recreational purposes right here in the city, in the desert?
And a lot of planning has gone into that over the last 125 years. You'll also note that with agricultural fields going away, we're actually using less water today than we were in 1974.
Really?
Really.
Even with all the growth in Arizona, that's amazing.
That's true. So because people are being more conservation minded. To the right of the aircraft, you see the Granite Reef Diversion Dam. You can see the headings of two different canals, both the Arizona Canal and the South Canal. This is where water that would come into our system in those 1,300 miles of canals and laterals originates.
It's kind of a water distribution system?
It's a great way to say it, Jeff.
Oh, thanks.
See the different color in water?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Colorado River water that enters our system through the CAP Canal.
And that carries on all the way down to Tucson?
It does, indeed.
Oh, I'm looking at my water source. This is super spectacular. We're so close to Phoenix and already out in the mountains, and it's not easy to get up here in something other than a helicopter, I bet.
You're right. It takes a while in a pickup truck.
And which lake is this? What are we seeing?
This is Bartlett Lake.
Oh.
This is the lower lake on the Verde River. This time of year, our Bartlett Lake is running about 100% full. 99% to be exact. And that carries about 177,000 acre feet of water. And as you know, we like to manage and measure things. So that's quite a bit. And how do we measure it? Well, we have to measure it, right, in order to manage it.
Science, engineering, and math. And I bet there's a bit of technology involved as well, our four favorite words.
You are right. Indeed there is. In order to get those data packets from these remote field locations back into our office, we have to use all kinds of technology. We have weirs in the canal system. There's USGS gauging sites as well as SRP-owned small gauging sites. We have folks that go out and gather this information on a monthly basis, if not more frequent.
There's some of your water vapor.
That's right.
That'll be on the way to the distribution dam one day.
Before you know it.
We really are seeing the whole journey now. This fantastic helicopter flight allowed me to see reservoirs, dams, canals, all the infrastructure involved. And I now realize that water management is a heck of a lot more than turning on a faucet and filling a bucket. This is a very complicated puzzle that you're part of.
It is. It's a big puzzle. That's why I need to get you up here in the helicopter to show you the watershed, We're not quite done yet. I got one more stop for you.
Are we going on foot or are we going back in the chopper?
We'll be going back in the chopper.
I was hoping you would say that.
A lot of our water ends up from snowmelt, in addition to just the rain that we receive in the valley.
In the desert?
Yeah, well, you know, those are the high country areas. We do snow survey flights, much like we're doing today, to check the depth. But that snow, over time, infiltrates and soaks into the ground, comes out of springs, and feeds the headwaters of different rivers, including the Salt Verde.
From the rivers, it goes to perhaps to the distribution dam, and then might be diverted into canals and travels around and ends up coming out of your faucet. It's an amazing journey that it goes on, and you just don't think about that when you take a shower or you put water in the kettle to make tea. It really is a journey.
It really is. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, the journey of the molecule.
Your career is fascinating. Geology, hydrology, meteorology, conservation even. I never imagined there could be a job that combined so many different elements. What opportunities are there in your field for my young STEM investigators?
No, it's a great question. Possibilities are endless. There's three that come to mind right away. There's the hydrologic technician program. Another option is to continue the STEM-based training, become a hydrologist through geology. Another option to get into the technology side is to be an instrumentation technician and learn about moving data from remote sites into our building. In fact, you know, the truth is that's only three. There are so many exciting opportunities, and I'm very lucky to work in this field. This is from our flight services group. You've definitely earned your wings today.
Oh, wow.
So be sure to stay in touch, okay?
What about me?
Well, this is the way back is a me trip and not a we trip.
You can't possibly be serious. You can't leave me out here in the middle of the desert.
Just remember, just go follow the river down. You'll be good.
Follow the river down to what?
Downstream.
Wait! What do you mean just keep following the river? Still ahead on the STEM Journals. You never know who you'll encounter when you head downstream. The only people that are in this river are some kind of probably swamp monster or seaweed ogre. Just keep following the river downstream. Or a duckfish. Or thank God. Listen, I got dropped in the desert by this crazy helicopter pilot. And I'm just so happy to see a real person, and you're not even a seaweed ogre or anything.
Why would I be a seaweed ogre?
Well, look at all that down there.
Well, those are algae, and this is a river, so there wouldn't be any seaweeds. They're in the ocean.
How do you know?
Well, because I'm an oceanographer, and I run an oceanography lab at ASU.
An oceanographer in the desert?
If you want to carry my stuff, I'll tell you all about it.
Huh. All right. Well, anything for a weird life. After you then.
All right. So this is a water sampler. And we throw that in the water, and we collect algae that we take back to the lab to look at the microscopic life. We can see with the microscope, magnifying this little tiny aggregate, and we see this microcosm right there. So we can actually see what that brown mass is made up of. So we'll see algae filaments, the green strings. Diatoms have an opal shell, so they live essentially in a glass shell. They're unicellular, like most phytoplankton. And then we see some zooplankton in there as well. So for example, insect larvae that live in the sediment of the river. Really, it's its own little habitat. It's like a little aquarium in itself. We can also get the DNA out of them, Because in contrast to plants, they all look very much alike, and DNA helps us say who's actually there.
It looks clean, but it's really a miniature zoo.
It is, and there's thousands of these microscopic algae in there. Thousands, in the space of a thimble.
All right, well, I'll hold on to that for you. What's next? Why is it important to find out what kind of life is in the river water?
Well, because some of these algae actually can be toxic to fish. Some of them can actually make our water taste bad. But before you actually drink it, it's all filtered out in the water treatment plants.
I guess we can't just try and kill all the dangerous algae here because it's part of the ecosystem.
Right, it's part of the ecosystem. Actually, the majority are really very good. They are the basis for the food web in the river. The algae are eaten by the zooplankton, they are eaten by fish larvae. The fish then are, when they're grown up, are eaten by the birds. So it's all a food chain. And this is what really fascinates me about investigating the life in the water, be it the river or the ocean or the lake. And it's so important. The phytoplankton in the ocean mainly produce half of the oxygen that we have available to breathe. It takes up about a third of all the carbon that we emit every year. So they're enormously important, but we can't see them with the naked eye. They're also producing oxygen through photosynthesis, like a lung polluting air inside the river. And at the same time, a lot of the CO2 that we put out into the air is taken up by phytoplankton.
So they're vital to everything.
Yes, absolutely. So the phytoplankton taking up CO2 is really important for our global climate. And it's happening on a large scale in the open ocean. And we actually have a project in the Sargasso Sea right now.
Sargasso Sea?
Doing research in the field is really the high point in my year. Going out into the field and being actually on a ship and being out in the ocean is absolutely the most fantastic thing I can imagine. Because you're right there, you know, close to the ocean, close to the things that you actually want to investigate. That actually reminds me, I need to get back to the lab. I need my samples. And I'm sorry, can't take you. It's for oceanographers only. But you'll be fine. Just head upstream.
The last guy told me to head downstream. While I decide upstream or down, our young STEM investigator explores the wetlands. Up next on the STEM Journals. Becca, it's Geoff. Can you hear me? I'm stuck in the desert. Look, I've had a crazy day with this helicopter and this oceanographer. I can't even get into it, but I'm in desperate need of a rescue. I've got to get to the Tres Rios wetlands and log an entry. Can you help me?
Well, Geoff, I'm really sorry to hear you got left out there, but I'm going to go head over to Tres Rios wetlands. It seems really interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go investigate, do a journal entry for you. I'm sure you'll be perfectly fine, whether you're upstream or down. So Tres Rios is stationed here in the desert, and nobody would expect that something like this would be out here. It is gorgeous, but it has more purposes than just looking good, right?
That's right. This wetlands treats reclaimed water from one of the largest wastewater treatment plants in Arizona before the water goes into the Salt River.
And it functions mainly on reclaimed water.
That's correct. Strictly reclaimed water from the wastewater treatment plant.
I can see that there are a lot of plants here that obviously do not belong in the desert. And you also mentioned different birds and fish, not to mention beavers too. Obviously, this is a great habitat for those animals.
That's right. But these plants, they're native to Arizona. You don't see them in the desert, but you definitely will see them in the river channels throughout the state of Arizona. We have hundreds of species of birds, reptiles, and everything that naturally come here to enjoy this site.
So Bob, you studied in civil engineering, which usually deals with roads and bridges. How does that have anything to do with a wetland?
Yes, I have a degree in civil engineering from Arizona State University, and this is one of the most unique projects I've ever been able to work on, because traditionally civil engineers do get to do roads and bridges and buildings and pipelines and stuff, but this is an extension of a wastewater treatment plant, which we as civil engineers also work on. So I was given the opportunity to work on this great project.
So this, using civil engineering, was like the foundation. That's what built everything, pretty much.
Yeah, civil engineers are very heavily involved in the planning and the design and even the construction of this site.
So when I clean dishes at my house or I flush the toilet, how does that water get to here?
Well, there's a pretty elaborate collection system in every city, and all those collection systems are tied into the treatment plant across the street from this site. And what this site does is it's basically between the treatment plant and the Salt River. And so this site gets all the reclaimed water from the wastewater treatment plant and then further polishes it to make it even more palatable for the river environment and better for the environment in general. Becca, this is the most magical point on this entire site, and this is the end of the journey for the wastewater. At this point, we take the last sample and prove to EPA that we treated the water as they requested us to do. So legally speaking, on this side, it's called reclaimed water, and as it passes this point, it becomes river water and goes back to the environment.
So clearly this is an incredible resource for all the state of Arizona and all its residents. And what I definitely learned here today, and from Geoff's journal entries, is that there are so many opportunities in careers when it comes to water. And I'm definitely gonna have to check it out.
So I hear you are interested in studying water. You're gonna need to narrow that down. Is it going to be hydrologist, oceanographer, geologist? Either way, it starts in the classroom. Take care of your maths and your sciences. You'll need to get some advanced degrees at one of the great universities that offer some of the fantastic programs. Visit a museum, visit our Grand Canyon, visit the great parks of the United States. Don't forget, stay focused.
On the next entry of the STEM journals, with fossil fuels diminishing, teams of innovative engineers and entrepreneurs are on a quest to develop alternative energy sources. That's next week on the STEM journals.